All right. So, are you guys ready? You guys ready to dive in to the number one lesson that every freight broker and freight agent need to learn? Now, this may not be what you're expecting, but it is critically important to grow a successful business. Without understanding this basic concept, you are going to chase your tail, you are going to struggle, and you are going to eventually fail. Okay? I've seen it too many times before. You have to understand the number one lesson is very simple. It is cheaper to keep an established customer, an existing customer, than it is to go out and get a new customer. So listen, think about that for a second. It's cheaper to keep a good customer than it is to go out and acquire a new customer. Now you have to let that sink in for a minute, because in most startups, the focus is customer acquisition, as it should be. That's a very, very important part of growing a business, because without customers, without shippers, without people willing to pay you, you're going nowhere fast. You're going to go broke, okay? But there's a caveat to that. You know, in the freight business, in the logistics business, in the transportation business, the key to success is to have what I call a very high LTV. Now, LTV stands for lifetime value. All right. Now, I'm not going to get too far down in the weeds today, but think about this. If you have a customer that ships, let's say they ship one load a week with you. Okay, just one load a week, a small customer, one load a week. And the average value of that load is it's a full truckload. Let's say the average value is $1,500. Okay. Now, I'm not very good at math and it's not an exact science, but I can tell you that my handy dandy calculator right here says that per year, 1,500 times 52 equals $78,000. Okay. So that's $78,000 in gross per year from one small customer at $1,500 per load, doing one load per week. Now, how many years do you expect that you will be able to have a customer? Now, we had customers, some of the customers we had that we did business with in my brokerage, we had done business with for over a decade. We had been doing business with them for over 10 years. So let's take that number. And if you multiply that $778,000 times 10, all of a sudden, now we've got a lifetime value for that little shipper doing one load a week of $780,000. That's the power of lifetime value. So what you have to understand, if all I did was go out and acquire that customer and move one shipment, I would have made gross revenue of $1,500. And let's say, just for easy math, it was 20% margin. I would have made $300, right? But if I'm able to retain that customer and build that lifetime value and have a long-term relationship with them, I can convert even a small customer from $300 in profit. So let's apply that same 20% to the 780, and I can convert that into $156,000 in profit that goes right in the Hip National Bank. Okay. So that's the power of customer retention. You cannot build a successful freight brokerage in this business. You cannot build a successful freight brokerage unless you understand and are able to retain clients. Customer retention is equally, if not more important, probably more important than customer acquisition. They're the yin and yang. They go together. You have to have both. But one of the mistakes that I see from brokers and agents, that I've encountered over the last 15, 20 years is that all of their focus is on getting the customer, not on keeping the customer, right? So they'll chase that customer for weeks or months to get the first load. They get the first load, and then all of a sudden they just expect that every day or every week the shipments are going to come over, and it doesn't work that way. You have to understand, it's all about relationship. You have to continue to enhance that relationship. You have to continue to build trust. You have to continue to sell through the process for as long as you're doing business with that client. Now, some clients are just going to be very easy. They're going to, you're going to get the first shipment, and then next week you're going to get the next shipment, and the next week you're going to get the next shipment. And as long as you don't screw up and make a big boo-boo or a big mistake or have egg on your face, you're probably going to continue to keep getting shipments unless something disrupts that. But with most clients, you're going to have to dig in, and you're going to have to figure out a way to continue to generate revenue and to continue that dialogue and to continue to get new lanes and do new quotes and new opportunities and bring new value and enhance the relationship and expand the relationships within that organization. So the lesson that I want you to understand that I think is critically important and completely and totally misunderstood in this industry is this: it's cheaper to keep an existing customer than it is to go out and acquire a new customer. Because think about it. In order to acquire a new customer, you might have to make 50, 100, 200 phone calls. I don't know. It depends upon you. It depends upon your niche. It depends upon your experience and your skills. But ultimately, you have to spend hours and hours and hours and days and days and days to acquire a new customer. Let's just do the math, right? Let's say, for example, you're able to acquire 4 new customers a month, 1 a week, just a hypothetical, right? A small number, not a big number, but you were able to acquire 4 new customers, not a week, a month, 1 new customer a week, 4 new customers a month. Okay. And let's say, for example, that you, as a salesperson or as the owner of the company, let's say your cost basis of all your sales and marketing costs, which is your salary, any of your sales and marketing expenses, so on and so forth. Let's just say your loaded cost is $4,000, right? Including everything. I'm just throwing kind of a rough number out there. If you take that $4,000 and you divide it by 4 customers in any given month, right? That means that it cost you $1,000 to acquire that customer. All right, so follow me here. This is just a hypothetical, but I want you to understand where I'm going with this and why it's so important. If it costs you $1,000 to acquire a customer, which is very low customer acquisition cost, okay? Startups can achieve that, but as you get bigger, the customer acquisition cost can go up. So if you cost you $1,000 to generate a client, and you went out and got a client, and on that first load, you made $150 on that first load, right? You still lost $850 up to this point. So you're going to have to, in order for $1,000 client at $150 a load to become profitable, you're going to have to move 7 loads. But here's the good news. You move those first 7 loads, and now your cost of acquisition for that customer is paid. So now you've paid your dues. You've invested up front to get the customer. You've now generated enough revenue to cover the cost of acquisition for that customer. And now everything from here on out begins to become profit. Okay. So it's important that you understand these fundamentals, right? I talked about a couple of things. I talked about customer acquisition cost. Okay. We talked about, kind of lifetime value, which is, I gave you that simple math equation of kind of starting to figure out lifetime value. For startups, it's very hard to understand lifetime value because you don't have a history of what your average transaction value or the frequency or the lifespan. But ultimately, you can give yourself a little bit of a baseline for that so you can understand. And that's kind of what my goal behind this was. But the number one goal of this training is for you to understand that it is cheaper to keep an existing customer than it is to acquire a new one. So you have to spend as much time trying to retain your clients and to build those clients and to grow those clients as you do acquiring new customers. You can't ignore those customers because I see it all the time. Salespeople get in this mindset. Everything is about customer acquisition. And I understand it's critically important. You have to be able to acquire new customers. But when you bring a new customer on, you have to have a process for onboarding that customer and going from 1 load to 2 load to 5 loads to 10 loads. And you have to learn to develop, enhance that relationship so that you can continue to evolve and develop and enhance and grow your revenue within those clients. Because here's an old adage: if you're not growing, you're dying. And what I mean by that is your business, if it's not growing, it's going backwards. There is no homeostasis. It means it never stays the same. Your business is more profitable today than it was yesterday, or it's less profitable today than it was yesterday. Okay? You are healthier today than you were yesterday, or you're not as healthy, right? You're fatter today than you were yesterday. Sometimes that's me, but ultimately nothing stays the same. And I want you to understand that applies to your existing customers. You either have a better relationship with them today than you did yesterday, or you don't. And that relationship is going to be the crux and is going to be the key component to you having a strong lifetime value of that client. And like I showed you that example, converting a small once a week client into hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit over the lifetime of that client. So retention is the key. All right. That's what I want you to take away today. Customer retention is very important. You have to be very intentional about it. It's not something that happens on accident. And it's a huge mistake that I see, freight brokers and freight agents making. They get that first shipment and then they just keep moving along and they forget all about that customer who they just made all kinds of promises to. And maybe they did a great job delivering the first load, but they have no plan to take that customer from 1 load to 10 loads to 100 loads. And you need to be intentional about that. Otherwise, another broker, another transportation provider, another carrier, someone's going to pick your pocket, get that customer, and all of a sudden you're going to lose clients because I showed you the example of $1,000 acquisition cost. You got to move 6 or 7 loads at $150 a piece just to pay for the cost of that one customer. But after you do that, you're in the green, you're in the black, you're making money. And from there on out, you can start making profits. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you understand that. If you did, if this made sense and you want to hear more, if you're interested in becoming a freight broker or a freight agent, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. We've trained over 8,000 students, been in business over a decade, and we have a 60-day, 100% money back guarantee. It's ironclad. Any reason you're not happy, just shoot us an email and we'll refund your money in the first 60 days. So I hope you guys enjoyed that.